Okay, Mary, I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about your general perceptions of the experience trying the remote observation project out in the school systems, and specifically as a supervisor. Just any thoughts you might have on what you think of the program.
I tend to enjoy technology, so I was excited to participate. And when we first started, I still went to the classroom and I was in the room where the students were recording just in case things didn't work too well. And as it progressed, the semester went on, I stayed first in another room and then I stayed at home finally and typed comments as the lesson proceeded. So I was also on the learning curve trying out ideas. I felt like my students did a lot of self-correction of small things. Language habits like and those kinds of things disappeared pretty easily for these students. Their pace, usually at the beginning of the semester, students talk too quickly, they don't pause long enough for their children to think about things, and their pace developed into a good classroom pace pretty naturally. I didn't have to say much about that with these students. Most of them saw themselves once a week for several weeks. Then we took a break at midterm, and then they came back to it later on. And in that interim, they had matured in their teaching too. So I felt like it was positive in all aspects, and there were some things that I didn't have to nag about that just sort of self-corrected because they could see themselves.
Going forward, given that you're very comfortable and familiar with technology and enjoy it, do you see this as a viable supplement to the practices of supervisors, let's say, who aren't necessarily as technically savvy? Do you foresee any issues, or how could this, what do you think the implications of trying to implement incorporating video on a larger level would be for people, like you and not like you as far as comfort with technology?
I think they'd be like you expect. There would be some people that would pick it up pretty readily and appreciate it for what it does. There would be some people that would have difficulty pressing the right buttons at the right times and would be thoroughly disgusted and would want to continue the way they have been. Mm-hmm. I think it would vary.
Mm-hmm. Do you see this? Is there anything that incorporating the video added to your ability to observe students and provide feedback that you didn't have at your disposal before?
When I started doing the feedback by typing as the lesson progressed, I realized that I could do some things differently. And I haven't refined that because I have only done that 2 or 3 times. But I feel the need to make some adjustments in what I comment on and how long I comment. With the typed response, I can type a long time, but then I'm way behind in the lesson, and I can't pause it the way I can when I'm watching it afterwards. When you watch a lesson at home, you can pause if you need to write. You can't do that when it's live. By the same token, you can't do that when you're in the classroom and it's live. But somehow, it's maybe what I'm used to, and maybe just because it's new and a little bit different, and that will go away.
Mm-hmm. So you touched on the difference between having the ability to watch a live session versus a recorded session. Can you talk a little bit about just kind of the techniques or the value of being able to watch something that's recorded and therefore being able to pause the video and reflect on it, and what are the advantages and disadvantages of watching something that's recorded versus live?
I think that my students who use the cameras regularly got very used to having a camera in the room, and they taught as if there was nobody watching. And I know that whenever I come in the room to observe a lesson, there is this extra added person there who is going to, change the dynamics in the classroom. I change the way their blood pressure operates. It makes a difference. And having just the camera and not me, even if I'm sitting down hall in the library watching, seem to put them more at ease, generally speaking. So in some ways, it lets you peek through the keyhole because they're used to having the camera around, and it's not a person sitting in the corner taking notes. So I think there was maybe a little reduced anxiety. I think the camera caused some anxiety the first time around or two, but by the time we set up these cameras, they had already recorded themselves once for a classroom assignment, I think, or very close to it. So there might be an advantage there.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see what all the kids are doing when I'm remote. I can only see the ones that are in camera range. I sometimes can't read what's written on the board because the reflection of light is wrong. So there are some missing elements, but it lets you focus on the vocal and verbal comments. It lets you focus on pauses, pace, those sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
It's different, and it has its own benefits, but it's not the same, and there are other benefits about being live.
Mm-hmm. So, in that sense, it sounds like you would necessarily advocate this as a standalone observation procedure, but maybe more of a supplemental practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Because by the time I started leaving the students alone and not showing up in the classroom, we had a relationship that was maybe 6, 7, 8 weeks long. I knew that they were writing plans. I knew what the plans would look like. I knew they were doing their reflections. And I knew that we had enough of a relationship that if they had an issue, they'd talk to me about it. And you don't have that at the beginning. I think the supervisor needs to be there in the classroom, even if the video camera is there too.
Okay. Anything else that's any?
It made a huge difference when I could log them in and start the recording myself.
So definitely getting the actual people who are sort of in the trenches running the show technologically is certainly beneficial.
Yes, and after I made one mistake, then I didn't screw up anymore.
What kind of buy-in did you perceive at the school level as far as the administration and do you think that any improvements? Some of the students, for instance, were talking about that it'd be nice, for instance, if the schools sort of bore the brunt of having the setup and all the equipment already there. Would it be? Do the school people themselves need to be more involved? Would that make things? How would that change things, or would that be desirable?
It would be lovely, but the difficulty is there is no single location that can have this equipment set up and be undisturbed, because the places where my students taught small group were in the library, which has classes all day, most days, and they were off in the corner, but there's no guarantee that kids would leave that stuff alone. They also in the past have used another small half-size classroom, which this semester was in use all the time. We didn't have access to that. So, and I don't know where else in that school I would put a setup and leave it.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that occurred to me while they were talking about this is that setting up the tripod, opening the laptop, and plugging in the cord is the only thing that would be already set up. All of the login and test the microphone stuff still has to be done every time you turn it on. So really, the setup part that would be removed by having a permanent setup isn't much. It's the other stuff that took the time. That's where they got bogged down, was when things didn't respond.
Mm-hmm.
So
great.
It's a nice idea, but I don't think it's essential.
Mm-hmm. So definitely there's no magic bullet to making it a seamless. I mean, when we cure, the present round of concerns, new ones will surely pop up. So
Absolutely.
It's, and that's I guess that given the traditional practice before anyone implemented this project, were there any unintended kind of consequences that you noticed, positive and or negative? I mean, was student behavior different when they knew that they were on tape, and were there? I mean, did anything surprise you?
I don't think I was terribly surprised, except that I discovered we have 2 video assignments, one for classroom management, one for methods practicum now. And we have to just about beat them to get them to set up a camera and do their video and do their feedback. It's because they don't want to do the camera thing. This was expected to be used whenever you feel like it, however, as often as you can. There were no rules, and they used it. And nobody told them they had to watch them. They could have ignored them. And they watched them because they wanted to see. So I think having the unstructured recording actually got better results than having all the rules, the expectations, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And we could keep those and let them apply it to any one of their recordings and still meet the assignment that they're expected to do, even though they have all these others to choose from.
I wonder if part of that might be due to kind of just the regularity of it versus knowing that, here's traditionally the one assignment
Mm-hmm.
for the semester and it's got to go right today. Knowing that you have sort of, more or less an unlimited number of attempts and that, you can kind of set it up whenever you want. I wonder if part of that helps with the, just kind of taking the pressure off of.
Yeah, I think it did. And I found that, like Alicia was saying, she watched them right away. She wanted to see. And because it was available right away, which thank you very much, because you thought it'd be a longer turnover, but it was available right away, and they watched it right away, it was fresh. And that made a difference. They also didn't have any accountability to me to say what they learned or what they noticed. And so because it was private, it was more the teacher model than the teacher-student model. They were doing what regular classroom teachers do, self-assessing and self-correcting.
Any other parting thoughts?
I don't think so. It was interesting.
Great. Well, I appreciate all of your efforts this semester. So, thank you.